All right, math scholars, let's go ahead and jump into graphing systems of inequalities. We've got our first example here. It says graph the system of inequalities and label the solution in the graph. And we're given the inequalities y is less than 2x plus 1 and y is less than or equal to 1/2 x minus 2. So there are a few things that I want to do here for this first example. I'm going to start by labeling my graph. We know that we want our grid labeled since they were nice enough to provide it for us. So y, x, I want to indicate that I'm counting by ones. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to color code. We did this with linear equations, but it's super important here because we're going to be shading in our graph and we want to make a nice clear distinction. So I'm going to be doing this first equation in red and the second equation in blue. The other thing I want to do before I start graphing is decide which ones are dotted lines and which ones are solid lines. Looking at the first inequality, y is less than 2x plus 1. Because there's no equal sign there, this one's going to be a dotted line. When I look at the second inequality, y is less than or equal to 1/2 x minus 2. Because of that equal sign, this one's going to be solid. We're going to start by graphing that first inequality. So let me go back to the appropriate color. Remember that the slope is the number in front of the x, the coefficient. The y-intercept is the constant at the end, and we always start with the constant at the end. So I want to start with a dot at positive 1 on the y-axis, and I'm going to label that 0, 1. Next, I'm going to use that slope to find my second point. So I'm going to go up 2, and then I'm going to go forward 1. So my second dot is right here. And we're going to go ahead and grab our ruler to play connect the dots. That looks pretty good to me. I'm going to go ahead and draw that line all the way across my graph. And now that I've done that, remember it's supposed to be dashed. So I think probably the easiest way for me is to go through and erase chunks. For you, it might be easier to just draw it dashed as you go. But computers are a little finicky. So let's go ahead and erase chunks here. Okay, so dotted line, arrows on the dotted line, label that line with the inequality. And then we have to decide where are we going to shade. And I'm going to show you both methods. The first method is the method we mentioned in our last video, which is choose a test point. By default, I always choose 0, 0 as my test point. So for y less than 2x plus 1, what I'm doing is I'm checking, is this test point on the graph true or false? If it's true, I'm going to shade towards the true area. If it's false, I'm going to shade away from the false area. Because remember, we're trying to indicate where are the true points. I'm going to substitute those numbers in. 0 less than 2 times 0 plus 1. I know that 2 times 0 is 0. And I know that 0 plus 1 is 1. And 0 is less than 1. This is a true statement. So this test point down here at 0, 0 that I marked earlier is true. So I want to shade towards the origin. So I'm going to grab my highlighter and do my best to kind of shade in this area here. It's not going to be pretty, but it'll be effective. So all of this area here contains points that make that inequality a true statement. This is the true region of the graph. Now we're going to repeat that process for the second line. Same idea. Graph it, label it, choose a test point. So first, we go ahead, we grab that y-intercept, -2. We make our dot. Next, we use our slope, which tells us go up 1, forward 2. So up 1, forward 2. Make a dot. Grab our ruler, play connect the dots. I'm going to go ahead and pause here so you don't have to watch me do this. You can see my line has been drawn. I'm going to do that same thing, arrows on both sides. I'm going to label that inequality off to the edge of the graph. I'm apologizing for that beeping. And then I need to do that same thing, choose a test point. So I'm going to use that same test point 0, 0 because it's not on my line. So I'm right here at the origin. And I'm going to do that same process for the second inequality. Y less than or equal to 1/2 times x minus 2. We plug in 0 for y. We plug in 0 for x. 1/2 times 0 is 0. And 0 minus 2 is -2. And on a number line, -2 is to the left of 0. In terms of money, I'd much rather have an empty bank account than owe the bank $2. So 0 is not less than -2. This is a false statement. So for the blue line, I want to shade away from the origin, which is this area down here. And you will see on this graph 4 separate regions. There's a region that is not shaded in at all. This empty region is false for both inequalities. So this area here is false for both. This area that's only in red is true for the red, but false for the blue. This little wedge down here that's blue is true for the blue, but false for the red. This area here where we've got some overlap, where it looks kind of purpley, that's true for both. And that's the area we're going to label solution. Okay, I'm going to do another example. In that example, I'll show you the shortcut instead of the test point method. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.